I love seeing my police officers at work with the uniform. Look back there.
Well, they still do a patrol of downtown. They just
Okay.
won't be sitting 100% of the time in the lobby.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab H. That motion was seconded by Mayor Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes 5-0. Tab I, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the vacation abandonment of closure of the alleyway located near Northeast 123rd Street between Northeast 13th Avenue and Northeast 12th Place, as described in Exhibit A, with the land reverting to a building property owner. Further, authorizing the city manager to take all necessary steps to effectuate same, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. That's tab I.
Oh, go ahead. John O'Brien, Transportation Manager. This was a request from the Palomar neighborhood. It's a small residential neighborhood, single-family homes. There's a fair amount of traffic that is coming from the industrial area, which is just to the east into the neighborhood. And so we took a look at it. We did a traffic study and determined that it was not a very high traffic area, and cars did go the wrong way down this one-way alleyway. We also did a ballot where all the neighbors in the area were asked whether they supported or not the closure of this alleyway, because they're going to lose access if this alley closes. And we got 24 out of 26 said yes, they would like to see it closed. Then we reviewed, there is a right-of-way deed. It's kind of a strange, it's the parcel is whole, and a little sliver of it was given up in 1953 under a right-of-way deed. So in order to close the alleyway, or if we close the alleyway, it just automatically reverts to the owner. There's no purchase that needs to go through. So the staff is recommending the closure due to safety reasons. Any questions?
Nope. Or let's get the public. Let's get real quick. Public hearing. Public hearing is open on the item. If there is no one, public hearing is open on item I, as in Irene.
Good evening. My name is Alina Medina, 1270 Northeast 124th Street. And I hope that you do grant the closing of this alley. I'm worried about traffic that comes in opposite, the direction of the alley, the street. And I myself encountered cars coming in that almost have accidents. And I'm worried about industrial zone and cars that are or trucks coming in that way that will cause a possible accident. Besides, there are also children and bicycle riding in the area. And I take it myself to go to work. It's very convenient for me to go out that way. And I prefer to go all the way around and avoid, somebody getting hurt. So I hope that you do consider this. Thank you.
Robert Hughes at 1150 Northeast 123rd Street. Good evening, Council. I worked very diligently on this particular project. It was a pet project of mine because that particular area of our neighborhood, Palomar Park, does not have driveways. So most of the people in the residential cul-de-sac have to park on the swales that are provided, and the cul-de-sac is a narrow street. That alley, 35 to 40% of the traffic on that alley goes the wrong way illegally, and some of it happens, unfortunately to say, happens to be city vehicles. It is used as a cut-through, an illegal cut-through, for people to avoid traffic on Northeast 125th Street. There's a lot of kids, a lot of young families in the neighborhood, and a lot of people walking the dogs. Our area has gone from pit bulls to poodles, and there's a gentrification process. In addition, one parcel of the land has recently been changed from low-density residential to industrial, and the closure of the alley makes sense so that that whole industrial district can be closed off and separated from the residential area. It is a safety issue because it is a one-way, single-lane alley, and people, when they do cut through and go the wrong way, they tend to speed up so that they don't get caught. So I'm in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Public hearing is still open, but
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Howard Tonkin, 12600 Griffin Boulevard. You could close this street like every other dead-end street we have in our downtown and maintain our downtown as the dead downtown of South Florida. Our downtown area is one dead-end street after another, no left turn, one way this way, one way that way. It's so hard to traverse our downtown. It's so amazing to me that our downtown area is such a cluster of traffic, yet the stores are all not happening. And are we looking at like what 24 houses want to have happen in an area, or are we looking at what's best for 60,000 people that live in the city? And you know, our city needs to be connecting people, not isolating people. If people want to be isolated, they should live in a gated community in Doral. But we live in a city where we need to be connecting people, building bridges, building bike paths, making our city walkable, making it accessible. And our city has the opportunity to be anything that we want it to be, but when we're limiting our city by just listening to the voices of one or two or a group of residents, rather than looking at what's overall best for everybody. First, it's there's no cars coming, then it's all these cars going the wrong way. I live on Griffin Boulevard, and we were promised a traffic circle 2 years ago. I've had multiple vehicles land in my front yard, and we've had a fatality, a death at the intersection of Griffin and 127th. We were promised a traffic circle. We're still waiting 2 years for that traffic circle. So, I don't hear of any fatal accidents, people driving 70 miles an hour, this kind of thing. And it's an area where you've got the Bright Line, you've got the train, you've got all these people trying to get from one side of town to the other. 125th Street is already overcrowded. And yes, people do go that way through because they're trying to get to 14th Avenue or to go north. And so, thank you.
thank you. All right, public hearing is now closed. Thank you very much.
Is the applicant here?
Yes,
Okay.
but it did originate with the neighbors, but.
No, I understand that.
So this is Mr. Lobo. He's the owner of the property that's
Right next to the street.
north of it, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what your intentions are. Once we give the property back, what are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna leave it, you gonna
I'm gonna
fence
leave the
it?
street. I'm just gonna put gates on it.
You gonna put gates on it?
Yeah. If you guys need to access anything, I know we have the sewer system right under that same street, so if you guys need to get in there, I'm not gonna close it down. I'm not gonna build anything on it.
Okay. Just
Anything else?
wanna know what you're gonna do.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, through you, if I might.
Go ahead.
Mr. Manager, Mr. Lobo will have ownership of the road once it's closed, is that correct? Okay. What happens in the future if Mr. Lobo sells his property, that property continues, it's just like any other part of his property?
That is correct.
Are we at all concerned, Mr. O'Brien?
well, it's just that we will have an easement. There's a
For
utility.
As a utility.
We're going to have a
right.
utility easement, which will be recorded with the deed.
Are chain link fences going to be enough to? I'd like to see something more solid than a chain link
I don't
fence
think
to.
chain link fences are even allowed under code.
Okay, so what barrier will we be erecting? Will Mr. Lobo be
Planning to put a
erecting?
signs on the chain link fence. If I need to make it a little stronger, I can also work on that. Maybe get a rolling gate
Well, I'm hearing chain link fences aren't allowed, so let's decide tonight what barrier will be in place, because if chain link fences aren't allowed,
I wasn't aware that chain link fences are not allowed.
He'll have to get a permit,
Yeah.
because we're not doing it. That'll be
I'm gonna
at his
do, I'm gonna do the work
expense.
myself to do change, put the gate in.
So, Mr. Manager, for clarification's sake, can Mr. Lobo erect a chain link fence as a barrier on this right away? Sure.
Oh.
No chain link fences
Okay.
are available.
What
or
what
allowed.
other options does Mr. Lobo have for barriers? Because if you don't put some sort of barrier up there, people are just gonna keep driving through it.
I mean, I'd have to confer with our building staff, but I'm off the top of my head. Bollards, I assume you could put there. I guess a masonry wall, a couple of other options, but I'd have to get back to you on all of the applications.
Sure, so
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that Mr. Lobo is aware and agrees to, if we do this tonight, the fact that he's not gonna be able to put up any type of chain link fences. It's going to have to be a more substantive type of barrier, whether that be bollards, cement wall, landscape barrier, something along those lines. And do we need to build that as a condition to the approval tonight?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm not sure that you can put any restrictions on this. So the way this came about is this is a right-of-way deed. The person who owned this property in 1953 owned the property. They gave the city a right to put an alleyway there. According to this right-of-way deed, it says, should the city stop using it as a street, it shall the owner shall have the right to immediately repossess the same. I mean, that's on the document, it says immediately. So I don't know that we can say, if you decide we're no longer using this as an alleyway, he gets the property. And then the rest of the city codes go into effect on what kind of wall he can build and all that. But if you make the decision tonight to say it's no longer a road, it goes back to him immediately.
I'm not comfortable, this is the right thing to do, but I'm not comfortable with us doing that in an open-ended matter where Mr. Lobo, up until 2 seconds ago, thought he was gonna be able to put up some chain link fences. Now that he can't, we need to have an agreement, because if he can't put up chain link and doesn't put up bollards or a cement wall or something similar, now we just have a piece of property that people can still continue to drive on, and they're just driving on his property instead of driving on our property.
what are you willing to, yes, come to the mic.
I mean, if I could put a metal gate, I could do a rolling metal gate, because I plan to use that as a driveway anyways. I get into the side, I use that alley to get into the back of my property anyways. I use that constantly, because I'm self-employed, I got a trailer, I pull out in and out, I come through that road all the time. So
A
I've actually
metal
put up
rolling
some
gate?
sort of closing, opening and closing system, whether it be chain link or something else.
So in terms of our code, since there's gonna be a little sliver there, he needs to file for a unity of title to consolidate it into one parcel. So you don't have just a little sliver sitting there next to his parcel. It sounds like he wants to unite the
No.
two.
That's not what we're discussing.
We're asking about what applications on a barrier are allowed there? If a chain link fence, what are the other
He can
materials?
put a gate, he can landscape it, so it looks like one unified
So a wooden
site.
gate, a wooden gate,
Yes, he can
a
put
metal
a metal
gate,
gate there.
Shrubs?
Preferably
Shrubs,
landscape it so it looks
landscaping.
like it's blending with the rest of the parcel.
So, Mr. Lobo,
You could do an
No, no
aluminum
change.
gate, the aluminum thing, the sliding aluminum,
aluminum gate, yeah. You do that.
That's fine.
I believe.
You'll get a permit and then get it done. Okay.
And I'll just ask the residents, maybe you wanna nod your head, are you guys okay with an aluminum or wooden gate or something like that? Okay, I don't wanna have another battle at the next meeting that we did this, you follow where we usually go with all this stuff, so, thank you for answering my question, staff. Do we need to build that in as a restriction right now, or, I mean, how do we?
He's gonna apply for a permit.
Can we not postpone this then till they can come forward concurrently or something like that? I mean, you follow where I'm going. I mean, then I'll vote no. I mean, I'm looking for a way to make sure that we're not revisiting the same situation.
I'm not sure what the question is. I mean,
All right, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city attorney. If we rescind our ownership of this property and it goes back to Mr. Lobo in about 5 minutes,
he will either put a barrier there,
or he will not put a
or
barrier
he will
there.
not, and it will continue as a road that people can pass through.
Okay. So if
It
he
becomes
does
his
not,
property.
right, right, so we're giving him a benefit. He's getting property that adds value to his home, and if he does not put a barrier, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll wait. If he does not put a barrier there of any type, and it remains a passable road for everybody else, why did we do this tonight, Mr. City Attorney?
Because he said he's going to put a gate there of some sort to block people off. They came to us and said, please give us back this road so we can block it off so people can't come through our yard.
And
So
what-
it's assumed that that's what they're gonna do.
And what Mr. Lobo is saying tonight, that he's going to put a gate, a barrier there, is that legally binding in your opinion?
It's your decision to say.
Mr. City Attorney, I'm asking you.
It's
is
enough,
it-
yes. You can't.
So if he just verbally has said tonight, I'm voting based on
Right.
your answer to this question. If he has just said he will put a barrier there, is that legally binding that he shall put something there?
I'd say no.
Okay.
No.
So what can we do to assure that some sort of barrier will go there that's legally binding?
He can get up here and say, as he did, I will put a gate up there. And if you believe him, then he'll put a gate up there. If he
But
does
you
it-
just 30 seconds ago said that that's not legally binding.
It's, sir, it becomes his property. This, understand, this was his property. For all intents and purposes, the person who owned this property owned this property.
I
They gave it to us.
fully
It goes
understand
back
it.
to
I
them.
grasp
If he
1953.
does-
I grasp
Right, but if he does-
everything.
But the consequences of him not doing anything is that we're where we are right now.
Right.
Which is we have a road that people go back and forth.
Right. And then we'll have residents here yelling at us that, why did we do this? Because we should have
Because-
made sure there was a barrier put up. Because that's what everybody's intent is in supporting this.
I want to do it.
He wants to do it.
wanna do
We
it.
can't force him to put a barrier up.
But
He
I
want-
want to do it.
Okay.
wanna do
But you follow, Mr. Lobo, you follow what my line of questioning
I
is.
understand your
If
perspective.
legally
I
you,
understand what
Sir,
you
are
mean.
you, do you
Can
want
we
to?
put a temporary, until we get the permits in order that I can pull the permits? Because I can do it tomorrow if you want me to. We could put something on the road, just put road closed signs so nobody can walk through them in the meantime until I get the permits so we can put the fence up.
I don't even feel the need to put something up temporarily, as long as you're actually going to put in the permits to put up the barrier. That's my concern, because
Oh,
we could now,
I-
once we legally give you this land, you can do whatever you want to do, which is nothing.
But I want to. I want
Right,
to do it. That's the
right.
thing. I want to close it off.
But from my standpoint as a representative of the city, I'm not interested in what you want to do. I'm represented in what the legal,
Can we, John just gave me an idea here that may resolve it. Since he's saying on the record that he's willing to put up the barrier, we can have the city, if he will agree to allow us to put our property on his property, we'll put up a city barrier, a temporary barrier on the, I guess, the
East side.
side of the alley until he has time to go through the permitting process. I can commit that to you if he so allows me.
That's fine.
fair enough. Thank you. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right. Any other comment? No? We need a motion now.
Motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab I. That motion was seconded by Mayor Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Item passes 4-1. Tab J, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager and the city attorney to do all things necessary to establish a tax-exempt, not-for-profit organization under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code with the purpose of funding the Emergency Utilities Assistance Program, and to solicit and accept contribution from the general public or private institutions and governmental agencies to support the program, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Through the mayor, back in November of last year, the city passed the Emergency Utility Assistance Pilot Program. We have been working on implementing that program. One of the steps that we found necessary is to create a 501c3 so that we can solicit and house the donations that come in to support that program. So we're coming before you to get permission to do so. So that's the nature of this item.
All right. Public hearing is open on the item. That's J or K?
It is J.
Okay.
K? No,
J.
that's J.
J.
It's J. Joseph.
Good evening, Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. Though the intent of this is very nice, I can see down the road where this item becomes a very troublesome project. When the city is going to dole out money on an emergency basis to people for their utility bills, that's very nice. But the part of soliciting funds from the public, from businesses, from people who may be doing business with the city, for people who may be doing big construction projects with the city, big developers in town, fund our emergency fund for $25,000 and things might go easier. We had that happen before in this city. Some people call it pay to play. We need to be very, very careful on what you're asking. The intention is great. The need is great. It's understandable. We have people who have problems with the utility bills, both water and electricity, and you want to help out. But where you get that funds and who you solicit that fund from, I think will cause you some concern to think about, because we've been down this road before. When we ask people to make donations, or previous administrations have asked people to make donations to our party fund and this fund and that fund, and next thing you know, it's being used to extort people doing business in this city. Thank you very much.
Jessica Alston, 1140 Northwest 125 Street, Sunkist Grove. FPL already has a mechanism in place where people who need assistance with their utilities can apply for help. If the City of North Miami feels so moved and has such excess funding, they can make a contribution to FPL to help them fund that fund, the FPL fund, and let them administrate it. That's what I'd like to see happen.
Bob Pashon, 13005 Coronado Terrace. I agree with Mr. Burns. I mean, mixing a municipal government and a not-for-profit charitable organization together down the road spells all kind of potential problems. There's regulations against 501c3s, doing politicking or lobbying and the like, and that's kind of part of what governments do. So to put that Chinese wall up, separating who we ask money for and what they're expecting in return down the road, I get the idea behind all of this, but it's a really slippery slope.
All right, public hearing is closed.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
It's funny that Mayor Burns just came up here and made that type of statement, because the intent, I believe when we passed it in November, it has absolutely nothing that you will already or proceed accusation of folks asking for donation, which I didn't get. That's number one. But number two, the city does have the educational board, which is already non-profit, and I don't think that type of, I don't even know where that was coming from. That's number one. I believe the intent when we passed this resolution was to assist our own residents who are in need. So the fact that they talk about play or whatever the term is, it's just a little bit, never mind. I think I'm done. It's crazy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
How much did we approve when we, passed this last year?
$5,000.
5,000? So we can't really give it out, we can't do anything with it till we get this,
I mean, whatever assistance you could dole out under 5,000, but then the funds would be depleted.
so, but can we give out that 5,000 now without the use
Well,
of this
no,
vehicle?
no. So when we passed remember when we passed the program, you set up some parameters for us to operate under. So part of this recommendation was to either, to deal with an entity like this to be able to collect the funds. So we're just literally implementing what you already approved. And this is a legal approval step that we needed to take, so.
No, you didn't answer my question. My question is, we have $5,000.
So the
Now-
way it was set up, the $5,000 was never meant to give away. We had that discussion the night that you approved it. It wasn't
It was just a
approve
start-up.
$5,000 and then give away the $5,000. The $5,000 was for any seed money
Seed money.
to create the program. So it was never the intent to take the $5,000 and give it away.
So where are we gonna get the money that we are gonna be giving away?
We talked about putting it as a volunteer donation on the utility bills that are currently going out. Anyone who would like to contribute to the 501c3, it'll be a separate legal tax exempt entity, can make that donation. When we do contracting, we had an item earlier today where we talked about our purchasing code already requires that anyone who does business with the city greater than 250,000 general fund has to provide us with a community benefits agreement. And this could be a portion of that, of their community benefits agreement, is to do that. There's a number of different ways, the same way FPNL does it. We're trying to actually replicate that same type of program. So, for our utility, not for FPNL, but for our utility.
Mr. Mayor. I know that in several conversations I've had over the years with Department of Ethics, if we're making these types of requests as part of the contract negotiation and they're made upfront and agreed to upfront as part of the contract negotiation, that's cool with them. They don't have a problem with that ethically. It's only when, as Mayor Burns said, we're coming around on the backside and saying, well, hey, you need to give us pay for play. Is it the intent that we will ask for any donations for this program upfront as part of a contract negotiation?
Well, I just brought that up as an example.
Right.
Because it already, like you just said, it is codified, it's upfront, it would be part of their their requirements to contract with the city to make that decision themselves. I don't anticipate the manager standing out on the corner with a sign saying, give us money, or calling, doing a call list or anything. That's not my intent.
Yeah, no, and I'm not, I don't have, it's not that I don't have faith in you or don't have faith in this council. I'm thinking down the line, once we've set this in place, what a future manager, if there ever is one, would perhaps try to do, because I've sat up here with other managers who I felt. So, if you're comfortable that, we're not setting up a pay-for-play kind of situation,
The only
you give us money or I'll vote for your contract.
Yeah,
or I won't vote
the
for your
problem with
contract.
that, the problem with that idea is, at the end of the day, the money still goes to the residents, and you all don't get to decide.
Well, but here's the next,
Who
okay,
is
so now it's my next question. Who does decide under
Remember,
this
as part-
501c3?
Right, as
But-
part, so this is two different things. So the way you all set this thing up was, initially it was, there's another organization which you have yet to pick who's going to select the individuals who get the aid. So that's still to be done. The question came up was, how do we collect this money? And at first, we talked about doing it within the city, and to add another layer, we said, you know what, the city shouldn't be in the business of collecting this. Let's collect a 501c3 that's separate from the city, and they would do it. So even in the worst-case scenario, the board, who's an independent body, goes out and says, hey, Joe, you want this project, you gotta give us $50,000. It wouldn't be you all asking for the $50,000. And at the end of the day, once we got the $50,000, it wouldn't be you all that gives out that $50,000. So I don't know how it would even be pay to play.
Sure, well, I get that too. The education 501c3 that we already have, we appoint those members and they make the decision who gets the scholarships, correct?
Yeah.
Is there, knock on wood, thank goodness, we've not exerted any undue influence on them to say, hey, pick my cousin to get a scholarship or something like that. But what barrier is in place to try to stop that if I called up somebody on the education committee and said, hey, my cousin is putting in for a scholarship, pick him, because I appointed you to this committee, and if you don't, I'm taking you off this committee, like, yeah.
Two things. One, there's qualifications, and two, per your ordinance that you sponsored, if I found that out, I have to turn you in.
Gotcha.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I believe this particular ordinance we passed, or resolution, was a one-time donation, and it was not a huge donation. So we're not talking,
Individually, no.
we're not talking lots of money to any one person. You mentioned something that I think would be a great idea, if we could do something on our utility water bill. Little box, would you like to contribute $1 to that? I mean, we got over 20,000 accounts. If half the residents would just give $1, all of a sudden there's an account there with $10,000 in 1 quarter. So, I mean, that's an amazing way to collect some money.
Right, that's the intent. The problem is, until we have the 501c3, we can't do that.
But I don't know, we could, maybe we could go back for discussion on that. The funding would come from a voluntary little box on the utility.
That's part of the program. That's what you
Is it?
voted, yes.
Okay, I don't remember doing that, but I think that would be a good source of funding.
All right, that's it.
Yes, I think that's it.
I need a motion.
Need a motion to.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab J.
Which tab is that, Jay?
That motion was seconded by Councilman Desorme. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes 5-0. Tab K, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, voting on whether to rescind the action taken on proposed ordinance listed under tab T of the March 14, 2017 council agenda, changing the future land use designation for the property located at 1850 Northeast 123rd Street, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Tab K.
Yes, Mayor, Council. So this item comes on behalf of Mayor Smith-Joseph. Several weeks ago, I was asked on this item, which you all heard back in, I believe it was March of 2017. The council heard it and voted down the project. I was asked how would we be able to bring this back. The code talks about reapplication. The mayor asked me, was there any other way to do it? I ended up speaking with the council for the applicant, and the process that we came up with was under Robert's Rules of Order. There has a rescission process, or a vote on rescission. And basically, a vote on rescission, which you did part of the process. So part of the process is, if you do a rescission on, if someone brings it up as a motion on the night of, then it's a 2/3 vote requirement. If someone makes a notice, gives a notice and says, hey, I'd like to bring this up later on, which you guys did, or you all did the last meeting, then it's a majority vote. So tonight, the item before you is essentially, do you want to rehear this application? And if you vote yes on this rescission, then it's as if the vote that you took back in February 2017 never happened. The applicant gets to come back sometime in the future and represent the item, and you all get to vote on it again. And that's really what we're bringing to you tonight for your consideration.
So we have to do public hearing, right? Okay, public hearing is open on the item. Item K as in kite.
Good evening, William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I'd like to speak in favor of this item. There are so many upside benefits to this project. and the changes that they're requesting. I think we know that we've sort of admitted as a city that we have many needs in terms of infrastructure and raising revenue to support our infrastructure. And I think any new development will start to provide that. I'd like to bring up a little different subject or a different angle of it. And as I entered the chamber tonight, there was a brochure that says, "Are you ready?" And that's, are you ready for the hurricanes? And if we're to be honest, the question is our city ready? And our city, unfortunately, is not ready. We probably, if we're lucky, we have maybe 5 or 10% of our housing stock, of our building stock, really that could stand up and withstand a hurricane of 4 or 5 category. We almost had it last year. We came terribly, terribly close to being hit by a category 4 or 5. We were on the center line of the cone. If that had happened, the single-family residences that have been there for 50, 60, 70 years would have had their roofs ripped off. Windows and window frames would have blown through. The area would have been flooded. And even though the flooding would subside, the damage would be done and mold would come in. We would have had thousands of people essentially homeless. Any new development, especially a development like the one we're talking about, which is raised above the ground plane, which is hurricane hardened, which will have quite likely a generator to provide site lighting and such during the difficult times, will make it easier for our police to, one less problem for them to worry about. Any chance we can get to renew our housing stock and any other building stock should be taken into great consideration. Thank you.
Bob Pashon, 13005 Coronado Terrace. I'm really not here to talk about the project. That's been done, and this project was voted down. I'd like to talk about the process. This project has been through the entire approval process. Residents have attended town hall meetings, committee meetings, commission meetings, public hearings. They said no. This city council voted no. And now through some slick political maneuvering, here we are again. It's like Groundhog Day. To me, it's unimaginable that this body will again ignore the voices of the residents. 6 weeks after these same people said the decision-making around here is lacking. Please do not play this political charade and bring this back up. This has been done. People spoke, and if we've got to start this all over again, you're going to get the same result. And I don't know why we have to go through this. This is just politics. It's bad politics. Thank you.
William Welch, 1180 118th Road. This is a slap in the face to every resident that opposes this. This was opposed by every quadrant of the city, north, south, east, west. The people that voted against it last time should honor their votes. The people that didn't should honor the fact that it was voted down. Politics are very funny. People will remember those who approve a hugely bad project for any part of their city. This project is a disaster for 123rd Street. And to bring it back up is nothing but slapping the people in the face. Anybody that wants to continue approving to be another politician, the people will remember them and will not vote for them. So I find it suicidal to vote for this to bring it back up because the majority of the city does not want this. You know, it's something that is unbelievable that anybody would have the gall to do this. And I truly hope that all 5 of you will vote this down because it was voted down less than a year ago. And the people will remember this.
Eileen Prevotel, 12000 North Bay Shore Drive. Close your eyes. Can we walk down 123rd Street? What do you think you see? It hasn't changed in 20 years that I've lived there. It's not attractive. There's nothing new. Here's a project that will be an entrance to North Miami. I don't know what these people are talking about. This will be a tax base. This will encourage new developers. We can't just sit and watch this city grow old, and that's exactly what it looks like. Every place I go in the city, there's nothing new happening. Every place else I go, I can see construction going on. I can see new areas. We just have old buildings getting older. Come on, guys. Start tonight. Start developing our area. Give these people a break. They're not asking for any money from the city or the state or the county. Not like other developers. These people have proven themselves. Give them a break and let's start something new. Thank you.
Rob, you said 1150 Northeast 123rd Street. I'm not speaking for or against. I just want to bring to the city's attention the dire need for the state highway department, the Florida Department of Transportation, the federal government to actually look at the traffic volumes on the roads going through the city. The city on the move is the drive-through city. 135th Street's a state highway. 123rd Street's a state highway. US 1 is Biscayne Boulevard. Northwest 7th Avenue is the state highway. Where is the state's responsibility in seeing that these roads, these throughways can accommodate the traffic of growth? And this, you guys have no input on state highways, but you have to have
I'm sorry,
voice.
I know you said you were not going to speak for or against, but are you
I just want the city.
But that can be done in citizen forum.
Right.
And we have to stick to this item.
Okay, well, I'm sticking to this, and I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The traffic has to be studied there.
Richard Anise, 13030 Northeast 10th Avenue. I don't really know how to approach this because every time the citizens say they want something, you guys just go the opposite. So I don't know if I should play devil's advocate and go the other way. I'm really not sure. You have two projects that you recently, under the NRO, you okayed approval for 67 units and a 6-story building in a residential area where it doesn't belong. You turned down a project for low affordable housing for seniors with a no higher footage in the back with a 45-foot setback matching Villa Maria, and you turned that one down because you were a 2-2 vote, which you probably should have never voted on it that night. I saw the last presentation for this development, and this fits everything you're asking for. So I'm going to say, don't do it, because then you might vote for it. I don't understand what you're asking for. You say you want things, and then you turn down things that fit what you want. So what do you want? I don't understand. This project seemed phenomenal. You got an empty lot there from Crippen Olds that's been empty for God knows how many years. How many years, Scott? I mean, come on.
Since I graduated high school.
Okay,
32.
thank you.
32.
I mean, I lived in an apartment back there in 1966, a couple of blocks from there, and that was empty then. It became a business, and then it went away. This is a beautiful project. I don't understand why you wouldn't reconsider this. Thank you.
Judy Brown, 1100 Northwest 128 Terrace in Sunkist Grove. I'm not really, I'm concerned about the process. If the city the resident has spoken against it, the city's already voted against it, then that should be a done deal. I don't see continuing going over the same thing. It's like beating a dead horse. You're going over this, we're gonna start the process again. We waste a lot of time in the city not listening to the residents. And I know one of the council persons said that after the last debacle with the bond, that they would listen to the residents. So this was last year. So why are we bringing this up again this year? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. I have no affiliation with this project whatsoever. But it is within your purview, because tonight you're only talking about reconsidering bringing this back to a future council meeting, which will be duly advertised, and the people who are for it can come out, the people who are against it can come out all over again. And over a period of a year, things change. But you have a process. You have the right, through Robert's Rules of Orders, which you follow, to rescind your vote and reconsider it. Or the applicant, after a year, could resubmit all the documents and pay a big hefty fee to reprocess this whole thing from the very beginning. You've already been down that road. This is the easiest mechanism that you are legally allowed to have. It's established. And so you're just following the established ground rules that are out there, because things change. Maybe the developer has made some adjustments or changed things one way or the other. The economy of the city has changed. The outlook of the city has changed. There's no bond issue lurking to come. This project, from the presentation that they did to this community a couple weeks ago, says it's going to give the city about $1 million in new tax revenue. That's a lot of money. Could go toward some of those projects that you all were thinking about. But tonight is just whether or not you're going to follow the procedures that are laid out to allow you to reconsider this item and bring it back so that the public can come back and have a new look at it. And you all are entitled to that process. Thank you.
Good evening. Annie Montgomery, 2082 Laurel Lane, also known as 124th Street. Excuse my voice. I'm getting too old for this, but I had to speak on it. I guess you're never too old to voice your opinion. This project has been going on since July 3rd. I think it was supposed to come in front of council, 2013. July 3rd, 2013. Here's the rendering, right here. And it was pulled. That's 5 years ago. We're nearly in July 2018. So it has been kicked around and put around for 5 years. I had a call from the developer, Mrs. Tauber, and I expressed my opinion then, and I still feel the same way, that this project they were allowed to do on LA Fitness. They were allowed 4 stories. They took advantage of that, and they went nearly 100 feet. I want them to stay what they're allowed to build on this project. Let them stay with that and move forward. If they had done this in 2013, look at the tax money that this city would have received. Wouldn't it have been great? But it wasn't enough money for them. They couldn't make enough money, is what I was told. That they couldn't make money. And I said they wouldn't make as much, but they'd make as much. Anyway, I would truly hope that you would not even vote on this. Just ignore it, because it has been around too long, and let them just build what they're allowed to build. Thank you.
Public hearing is now closed. We'll come back to the dais for comments, questions.
Mr. Mayor, you're the one asking us to reconsider this tonight. Why?
Well, my reasons are very simple. I don't know Ms. Talbert from anywhere. I don't even know her first name. I don't know your husband. But as an elected official, as a mayor, I feel like this city, 92 years old, and I've been bragging about our age being 92, and in 8 years we're going to be celebrating our first centennial. There is a person who mentioned here about our city getting older and older and older. When I first got elected, one very key phrase that I use is that I want to see cranes in the streets of North Miami. You go to your right, you see cranes. You go to the left, you see North Miami Beach approving many-story buildings. You see Aventura going off the roof. And it's okay to be proud to call yourself a bedroom community. There is nothing wrong about that, but this is 2018, and I don't want to go down as a mayor who actually came and crippled this wonderful city of North Miami, which I consider an oasis, which I consider being a flower that is among a bunch of thorns, but that flower can bloom, it can blossom, only if we put our minds to it, only if we open our minds and realize that we are living in the 21st century, and we are not an island. We have other people living around us. And the person who mentioned about vote, I don't come here to sit down and make decisions for votes. I don't vote here for votes. And I don't make decisions based on emotions either. We have a city to develop. A couple of weeks ago, we took the initiative and went to West Palm Beach. Administration and we went to downtown, took the Bright Line, and we went all the way to Palm Beach to learn, to find out the initiative that they put together so they can develop their city. I don't vote here for votes. And I think this city needs a break, if you ask me. We need a break. That's the only reason I came back with it.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question of staff? If this is reconsidered tonight and the measure passes, when does the project next come to the city council?
It'd be based on the applicant. We've spoken to the applicant. They could come as early as next meeting, but we'd have to discuss with them when they would be prepared to make their presentation. So it could be as early as next meeting, but more likely than not, my understanding is that they want to wait until August or September to be prepared to have a presentation.
Do we need to get I obviously feel that's speedy if it comes back in 2 weeks. That doesn't afford much time.
You can ask them, but in my conversations with Mr. Geller, it was sometime in the fall, was when he would bring it back.
Sure, I have no issue. Is it okay?
Yeah, does he have what, 2 minutes?
Please. You don't need to. Yeah, we already.
Yeah, I'm obviously more interested in it coming back in the fall as opposed to 2 weeks from now. That's a much different.
I'll just place on the record that we will not seek to have a hearing before the city takes its break over the summer. There's a couple of meetings before that, then there's 2 meetings that are skipped. We will not seek to have it presented prior to the city's break. It will definitely be after the break before we seek that. Obviously, there's some staff issues that we have to clarify as well, but we will not be bringing it back before the break.
And if that means late August at the earliest.
At the very earliest, sir.
Representative, is your client amenable to having town hall meetings that are advertised well in advance and not, as some of the city events are advertised day of, day before kind of thing?
Yes, sir, and in particular, not only are we amenable to that, we will commit that we're going to do that with sufficient notice, principally because we want to clear up one very significant misunderstanding that apparently occurred when this was last before the city council. Candidly, this is an issue of trust, and because there was some question that staff, I think, was uncomfortable in responding to, we have dramatically revised the declaration of restrictive covenants that was done by council, my co-counsel, Ms. Jones, and we think that that would demonstrate a significant change also, that the city would be able to rely on the fact that we would not be able to seek any changes in height or density without getting a supermajority vote. That's in the covenant we're now proffering. That was not the case before. So we certainly, to answer your question directly, we welcome and commit to having these town hall meetings so we can explain that change, because it's a trust issue, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to speak. Two things. We're not here to vote on a project or what we voted on. We're here to vote on a process that we did. And I've been watching the council meetings for 15 years now, and I have never seen an item come back and be reheard a year later. I haven't even seen an item more than a couple weeks, but more than a year later to come back and rehear an item is opening up such a Pandora's box for this city, because any person who is, every developer, every project, any item that has been voted against can be brought back, like this item. And we're gonna start rehearing and rehearing. And, I mean,
I'm sorry, I have to answer that, Councilwoman.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Understand that, because some of the residents also said the same thing. Our code allows you to come back and reapply. I mean, it's not, when you vote on something, it's not as
I'm
if it's
saying,
never
okay,
coming back
reapply,
forever.
but I'm saying, I have never heard a,
Our code allows you to come back after a year. This has been more than a year.
I get
So,
that.
so had they just gone and reapplied, you'd still be hearing it. So the only thing that's different here is the process about how they get here, but they could have reapplied. So
No,
the idea that they can't reapply, that's not true.
No, I absolutely understand they can reapply. I'm just saying, we can have people come back that were turned down by a majority and just say, oh, I want to be reheard, and want somebody up there. I'm just saying it's possible. Also, I just want to point out, we did not turn down a project. We turned down a very large zoning change. We didn't say, no, we don't want this project. We said, no, we don't want a PCD with a possible height of 140 feet, moving east of Biscayne Boulevard with density of 125, with or without restrictions. That's what we were voting on, was a zoning change, not a project. That's all I have to say.
Alex, it's you.
Any other comments?
Well, from the get-go, I was a supporter of the project, looking at the renderings and meeting with, I believe it was Ms. Tauber and someone else at that time. I forgot, and I was kind of stunned that it was turned down, because I do understand the nature of this city, how we're so locked behind when it comes to development, and when you're looking at our neighbors around, it's, you know, this is North Miami. I think it's almost expected. The process I don't know about, but if the attorney says it's absolutely legal, I don't see any problem with it. But I had already made it myself clear. I am a big supporter of that project or anything else that's making our city moving forward when it comes to development. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, and last time I voted against the project, but right now I have two reasons that I'm thinking twice. First of all, I met with the developer and expressed some recommendations, and I don't know if they met those recommendations. I haven't talked to them, and this is for a later time. But the other thing is, I'd rather see a project like this than a storage on 123rd Street. And my question for the city attorney, we're not voting on the project right now. We're voting on the process.
Yes, sir.
Not the project.
Not the project.
What is the process, the legal process, to reconsider an item after a year?
Okay, so under your code, after a year, an applicant can reapply. That means pay their fees, go through the whole process again, go through planning commission and reapply. So that's the code. The question I was asked, was there another way to do this? And this is the other way to do it. You've adopted Robert's Rules of Order, and under Robert's Rules of Order, there is the process of rescission. And what the rescission does is put the applicant back in the place they were back in March of 2017, where you get to rehear their application and re-vote on it. So that's the process.
After more than a year, do you feel comfortable that we will consider the item without the applicants went through the process again, apply and goes to the planning commission?
Honestly, I don't feel comfortable making that decision. I can't answer that. I don't represent the applicant. So you'd have to ask the
I'm
applicant.
talking about me.
Say, what's the?
Will you recommend that we go that way?
Our code says you reapply. That's what our code says. Again, the question I was asked was, is there another way? This is the other way. So it's up to
Is
you
it
all.
legal that
It's
other
legal,
way?
yes, it's absolutely legal.
We need a motion. To approve.
Listen, and
So moved.
again, if we vote,
Well-
I withdraw my motion.
if we voted for it tonight, right, we're not voting to approve the project or the zoning change.
You're not approving the project or the zoning change. You're just approving that the applicant will be able to bring back this application sometime in the future.
Okay, will you sit down with the applicants and go over the process, whether or not it's gonna come before us, or you're gonna recommend that it goes before the planning commission, reapply and?
No, if you vote in favor of this resolution tonight,
They're
they're
gonna
not
come
going
to
back to
us.
planning commission. They're coming back to you again.
Or they're coming back to us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I have a question for Mr. Geller and State Rep. In the last meeting, I make some recommendation, and if we agree tonight, how many workshop do you anticipate to have with the residents and discuss the changes?
We had planned at least two, because we want to be sure, this really affects the entire city. So we had planned on at least two. If there's a feeling from the council, formal or informal, we're happy to take your guidance. We want this to be fully and thoroughly vetted with the residents. The changes that are made, for instance, a berm that's going to be in front that will help to shield the project from the street, and especially the issue I referred to about requiring a supermajority to change height or density, and a number of other suggestions. We want them fully aired. So we had thought to have at least two, but we can
Can you
have more.
Can you advertise those workshop like 3 weeks, 1 month in advance? Because
Yes.
that's the complaint of some residents that they're not aware of those workshops.
Yes.
Okay. I make some recommendation last time. I met with the developer, especially about the front building and the step back. And I hope that in the workshop I get to see that in order for me to see whether or not where we're going with this project. But
I believe those are made,
can,
but yes,
one
sir.
thing I can say, I rather see this project than a storage on 123rd Street again.
All right, you want to make we open for a motion again?
I have made one.
Okay, I'll second it. No, would you withdraw it, or you want to
Oh,
make
okay.
it again?
Sure, I made a motion to move forward.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilman Desume to approve tab K. That motion was seconded by Mayor Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No?
Item passes 4-1.
Thank you.
L, that's in Larry.
Tab L.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Huh?
So Mayor, tab L is a quasi-judicial,
Oh, is it? Okay.
yeah. So I won't go through the entire spiel that I normally do, but anyone who's going to speak on this item, could you please stand and be sworn in, since this is a quasi-judicial item?
Which one is this one?
This is
The M1?
the comprehensive plan.
If you will raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that what you will be stating tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
All right, thank you.
Tab L, proposed ordinance first reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending volume 1, goals, objective, and policies of the city of North Miami, 2016 comprehensive plan in accordance with the requirements of section 163-31843, Florida Statute 2017, and chapter 29 requirements, Chapter 29, Article 3, Division 11, Section 3-1102A, Sections 3-1105 through 3-1110 of the City of North Miami Code ordinances, specifically by amending the future land use element to 1, create the new special development and transit overlay district with related goals, objective, and policies in furtherance of the vision of the Regional Activity Center, and 2, at policy 1-2-1 to establish maximum density and height for the new overlay district, further amending the future land use map to reflect the boundaries of the overlay, providing for correction of certain scrivener's errors, and adjusting the boundary line of the existing future land use categories to provide for better accuracy, providing for initial hearing and subsequent transmittal of the proposed text and map amendments to reviewing agencies and or any interested local government or governmental agency for review under the expedited state review process, providing for an adoption hearing and subsequent transmittal of the proposed amendments and supporting data and analysis as may be amended to respond to comments from the reviewing agencies to the State Land Planning Agency for the determination of completeness, providing for repeal, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That's tab L.
All right.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Tanya Wilson Sejour with the Community Planning and Development Department. The request before you is for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan. Specifically, staff is requesting an amendment to the future land use element of the comprehensive plan text to create a special development and transit overlay district known as SDTOD. Also an amendment to the city's future land use map, the FLUM, to include the SDTOD boundaries. And then the last request regarding this amendment is to correct the citywide future land use map inconsistencies. I'm going to provide some background on the Regional Activity Center itself. Back in 2003, the city adopted a designation for a Regional Activity Center. On the screen, you'll see the actual boundaries of the RAC that was created in 2003. It included a component that was educational through FIU, also included recreation through Alita State Park. It included the formerly known Biscayne Landing site, now known as Solomia, and it included the west areas west of Biscayne Boulevard. The RAC at the time was intended to activate the northeast segment of the city, particularly on the Solomia site, to create a live, work, play environment. There were densities associated with that development. Along with the approval that was provided by the state had a series of goals and objectives that had to be met. One of them for the creation of RAC was for an actual TOD area that would be included or provided on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard. That TOD area was to be designated as an overlay district, now referred to as the Special Development Overlay District. At the time, though, when the RAC was created, the TOD district itself It included several components, one of which was 2,000 residential units that was set aside specially for that overlay district. At the time, the city was required to amend its comprehensive plan to create within the text that designation for the TOD. It was required to amend the map to create that overlay district. It was required to transmit that back to the state. That was never done by North Miami. So what you have now is an actual regional activity center that is lacking a transit overlay district designation. So the request before you, we have a depiction on the screen, would be for a 70-acre sub-area region. That's west of Biscayne Boulevard. That area would be dubbed the SDTOD sub-area. The area itself, in total, would be a maximum of 2,000 residential units, as I mentioned before. The recommendation for the density within that district would be 125 dwelling units per acre, similar to the designation that we currently have in the planned corridor overlay district that runs along Biscayne Boulevard. In terms of the proposed height, that would be 110 feet. It would include parking levels with opportunity for a bonus height of 40 feet, giving the area maximum height potential of 150 feet. Exactly as you would see along the Biscayne corridor, staff believes that in terms of the market demands within that area, in terms of the land use composition, that this density and height combination would be suitable for the land area within that STOD district. So in terms of the other amendments that are being brought before you tonight, one of the other inconsistencies that we have in the future land use map is actually the designation of what we know as a Portofino site. That's the site located at 1400 Biscayne Boulevard. The site currently has a designation on the future land use map of mixed use low, but the request tonight is to correct the land use inconsistency and revise that to mixed use high. And the reason behind that is that the current built environment, based on the conditional use permit that was issued to that site back in the 70s, allowed for a density of 36 dwelling units per acre with a maximum height of 100 feet. However, because the city designated that site only at 25 dwelling units per acre with a maximum height of 55 feet, it renders the site non-conforming. So if approved tonight, that would allow the city to correct that land use conflict and to have that map change occur on that site. There are also several other inconsistencies on the future land use map. There are Scrivener's errors that were identified. You'll see a depiction on the screen where you're seeing split zones in the R2 district where the zoning doesn't completely cover it. Sometimes in GIS, these anomalies can occur where the lot lines don't run or measure up exactly with the district lines. So this gives staff an opportunity to go through and to ensure that the zoning district itself completely covers the lots and they're in their intended places. So when you have an application being filed or you have development occurring on those lots, you don't have split zones or abnormalities that would prevent it from being developed. So we just have other examples that we've included on the screen for the benefit of the residents at home. So you can see some of the examples of the anomalies that we currently have on the future land use map. Another noteworthy site, this one we're all very familiar with, would be the Gwen Margolis site. If you notice the picture depicted on the left is currently what we have there. It's zoned as mixed use, but we know that this is a city-owned property and the appropriate designation should be community facility. So that's one of the other revisions or corrections that would be made if this item is approved tonight. And again, more depictions of some of the anomalies that we have. This was an annexation that occurred back in 2012, and this site itself, as you can see on the map, based on the mapping application, it's not covered with any actual designation of residential, and it should have a complete color, as you see on the picture depicted on the right. So in terms of the next steps, the state will look to see if the review for the text amendment is consistent with the city's land development regulations. Staff has reviewed it based on section 3-1105 of the LERs and believes that this request meets those requirements. So once we transmit, that will go to the State Department Economic Opportunity. It takes around 6 months for that entire review process to be completed. And then it's returned to the city for second reading when we'll have to incorporate any recommendations that we receive from the state. That completes staff's presentation of the request for both the text amendment and the map amendment. If the council has any questions of staff, I'll be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Zhu. At this point, we'll open it to the public. For anyone who wishes to be heard, to please come to the mic and make your comments.
Hello, my name is Marisol, and I live at 1270 Northeast 124th Street. As there has been conversation about the zone that affects me and the M1 zoning off of 12th Place and 13th Avenue.
I have to interrupt, I'm sorry. We're not talking about the M1 by your property. This is the M1 that's adjacent to 151st Street.
Oh, no, yeah, that's great. I
This
like
has
that
not,
one.
yeah, so before we go down that path, this is not the M1 that's on 123rd Street. It has nothing to do with that.
But this is the comprehensive plan.
Would not change that at all. This does not touch that area.
It's only
Doesn't talk about
addressing
that at
areas
all.
with problems.
Yeah, this only talks about the M1 that's adjacent to 151st and Biscayne. This is not discussing
So
yours at all.
none of this talks about
Nothing to
anything
do with
else
your
except
property.
for those scrutinous errors.
Nothing to do with the property that you're talking about.
So if I would request that the city manager take a look at that section so that we can make sure that the amendments get added, how do I properly address that?
You've already sent those to me, and I sent a communication to a group from your area, I believe yesterday, stating that it would be it'd be forthcoming in the next agenda.
Oh, okay, sorry, I missed on that email. So then I will speak on matters to this M1 zoning that you're talking about over there. I think it's a great spot for it, especially with the Ninja Lounge being right in that area.
Ninja
It caters to that situation. Then this map. And then I know that Solomia is taking a good chunk of that area over there, but I'm hoping that whatever does get done in the pink zone and across from the railroad, the railway. Let's see, conforming, you fixed that. Well, you kind of just messed up my mojo. I really thought I was gonna come up here and talk about that.
We're giving you what you want.
Yeah, I'm
Thumbs
happy.
up to the city of North Miami.
I'm really happy
Next
about
meeting.
that. That's why I was like, all right, because a lot of us were kind of concerned, you know? Okay, so that huge area over there across the street, I know that we're fixing that one, but you know, that's green zoning. Want to make sure that whatever does get built in that zone, that always, any rules or regulations that we could put in there and amendments to protect the park and that area over there, because I know everybody wants to park over there. It's beautiful, it's wetlands, and the nice recreational area. I know that Arch Creek is included in this recreational area, so I hope more things come to cater to that then. And 180 days to review. Okay, well, thank you for your time.
William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I'd like to ask, to begin, I'd like to ask clarification, please. Our understanding was, when calling community planning and development, that there would be a discussion on the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan, and that was coming up, but it had to be reviewed by the planning commission, and then it would go on to council and again to council. Will that be happening next month? If not, then I ask the mayor that we open this up so that this is a time to make amendments to the comprehensive plan and land development regulations, that we forward those concerns at this time. I'd like to point out that the Planning Commission, even though they had more than a 3-hour meeting, was basically nothing was conveyed from that meeting. The Planning Commission was concerned about the Spot Master site. The Planning Commission, you know, repeated on so many occasions over so many years about increasing the zoning of our city, and that's fallen on deaf ears, was not recorded. We did not have the workshop, and that is a concern that those additional thoughts were not incorporated. So I would hope that this tonight is not just limited to this one item, that it is our opportunity to change things, particularly the, maybe not changing density, but changing the heights throughout the city. I'd just like to say in particular, in light of not having bond funding, I think we need to increase our tax base. Creating North Bay Shore Drive, changing it to 500 feet, keeping the same density, no traffic studies, it's a subjective matter, but to go to 500 feet to match Biscayne Landing, also known as Solomia. They have 450 feet plus unlimited parking below it that's exempt. They're not on the water. They're subsidized. We've funded them in such a great degree. Why can't the private sector have that? Why can't we get a project that will inspire our city and generate something to go revenue for the rest of the city? Please consider North Bay Shore Zone change.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kevin Burns, 2065 Alameda Drive. I understand the need for this, and I agree with what the staff is recommending, except I have one concern. If you look at the color map that's in your packet, you'll see a piece of property designated, I'll just do it visually, that vacant 2-acre in front of Diesler, in the industrial park. That property could now be upzoned for residential. And the conflict that we've always had in this city is, which they did at Center Court, and if you look at your map, a big chunk of this is Center Court, which is fine. That property gets upzoned for the rack. But that 2 acres that's in front of the Deezer Museum, which I've traditionally have always believed to be industrial, it's surrounded by industrial. You start introducing residential property into the industrial community, you are creating a conflict. The industrial area, we have a very limited amount. They have jobs, they make things, people create furniture, and they have gyms, and they've got aircraft testing things. You got Amazon that has property over there, and you have all kinds of stuff where people actually work and build there. You can put residential anywhere in this community, but do you really want to introduce residential into your industrial area? Center Court is a perfect example. That was at one time all industrial, and they introduced residential there, and we know what happened over the years there, and it is being the process of being redeveloped. But back to that 2 acres is the biggest concern that I have, is that we're going to have inherent conflicts between business and industrial use. You have it on 121st Street. You have residents talking about that now. So
Okay.
please look at that and ask
Thank you.
staff their opinion. Thank you.
Jessica Alston, 1140 Northwest 125 Street, Sunkist Grove. I may stand in correction, but I just want to be assured that this does not include maximum density or height adjustment for Northwest 7th Avenue corridor. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
This application is only discussing the M1 district adjacent to 151st Street. It doesn't do anything to 7th Avenue.
Near the railroad track, just west of Biscayne Boulevard.
In District 1.
In District 1? All right, I just still want to reiterate my objection to any kind of maximum density on the Northwest 7th Avenue corridor. Thank you.
Significantly in District 1.
Most of them?
No.
Alina Medina, 1270 Northeast 124th Street. And I do support the increase in height for the Bayshore zone on the water. I think it'll be better that way if we have an increase in revenue for the city. And just want to thank you also for the closing of the alley. Thank you.
Yeah, Attorney. Did we swear everybody in?
Yes, yes.
Eileen Prevotel, 12000 North Bay Shore Drive. I would like height increases throughout the whole city. We're not going to get any more land. We can only go up. And if people come here and just always say no to everything, then we can never expand. We had someone say earlier that, you know, the people said and the people voted. You don't see many people here. It's like they're waiting for somebody else to do the job. I say, please, let's look at everything and increase heights so that we can have a more prosperous city. Thank you.